You feel the warmth of the child feels the warmth, your warmth. And it's only different when they grow up. Then they are taught not to think of you as their equal.
From the scattered kraals and distant villages, the African has brought to Johannesburg many of his curious tribal customs and quaint ceremonies.
I think black people knew white people much more than white people knew us.
His love of gay dress and personal ornaments add a splash of color to the sunny streets. His leisurely ways and cheerful smile are a characteristic of his sunny nature, for the hustle and bustle of Western ways has scarcely touched the African.
When he leaves in the morning to go to work, he becomes a boy. When he comes home, he becomes father, he becomes uncle, he becomes grandfather.
Our parents sometimes would tell you not to criticize things openly because they were afraid that we might be arrested or, just be hurt. Of a cousin.
I saw this young girl for the first time. What a wonderful voice. Then I decided that I'm going to tell the other guys, and then we should talk to her.
Yeah, she must have been about 20, 21 years old. I think I was about 14 years old then. She just come to town, and her cousin Zweli
was boiling, part jealousy and part of losing somebody I really thought great of, and somebody we are going to go great guns with.
Miriam was always have been in trouble. With a figure like she had, she was a prim, beautiful woman. She could sing and seductive. When she came in with her short hair, she was it. And all the guys, even you, Masikela, as a young kid, used to hanker after this beautiful woman. And finally, he married her afterwards, a lucky dog.
And it was not easy because they were the gangsters as well. They had to have a star to be seen with. They had to have what they called sheilas, that those were the women who work as domestic servants to run to if the sun goes down and he's near the house of the white folk. And they had to have the nurse in case they get hurt.
We used to have gangsters like the Americans, copying the Americans, like the Americans of overseas. And they were riding big cars, and flashy clothes. And now they used to call us the moles, the cherries. And we would dress beautiful, wear brown and white shoes and shirt stockings, and dressed up to be with the guys on Mondays when they take us to the Bioscope cinemas.
They were smartly dressed, and they did their thing. I mean, they didn't work, so they had to earn their living by doing other things, in order to make money. And of course, you had to have a boyfriend that was a gangster to be well protected.
It was real bad. It was real mean, And what I liked sometimes, they were into life, like jazz. If you're going to perform, when you come Bella, when you come Hussein, when you come Bella, when you come Hussein, sugar, 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 sugar. Sugar, sugar, sugar,
sugar, sugar, sugar, yanishia. Sugar, 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 yanishia. Sugar, 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 yanishia. Ha! When you go, we saw them as the malls, as the women of the big gangsters, and you stayed away from them.
I don't know how to say the word I want to say right now, because whether you liked the guy or not, if he chose you, you gotta go. When you go from that lover, when you get the daddy, when you go from that lover, whoever boy I'm when you go from there, when you get there,
Sophia Town had many such gangs. Our gang was called the Vultures. There were the big ones, the Berliners, who were also called the Gestapo, and also were called the Mawagraphone. And these people at a very strange time in history emulated Hitler. Their children were named after Hitler. Because remember, Hitler was the enemy of the Allied nations, and he was fighting against General Smuts. One of the Hitlers was one of the best swimmers in Father Huddlestone's pool, Hitler, and he used to run fast. You could never knife that guy. But anyhow, this was the place where it all happened. The place of jazz, of music, of dance, of the jitterbug. The place of violence, the place of death. The place of politics, where people fought and died and lived by the knife and also died by the knife. This was Sophia Town, as we called it, Kofifi.
Sophia Town was one of the best places. It was lovely. We had Chinese, Indians, whites, all the nations you can think of. And people were living harmoniously, and they were happy. And I could share bread with the Chinese. I could share a piece of meat, you know, bite and give him to have a bite. And that was the life, and that's what the government didn't like.
It was just sad when it had to be, you know, broken down. Then we had to be told to go to Soweto. But because of the apartheid, we had to leave Sophia Town. And now it belongs to other people. We used to sing for Africans on Thursdays and Saturdays afternoon. But from Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesday and Friday and Saturday night, it was for white people.
We had to have night passes to be in the city or go through a city at night. After a certain hour, there was a curfew for blacks in the white areas.
And you had to be out by 9. But we had to work. I mean, this is our life. This was our life. I had to go and sing. Some of the clubs, you know, just used to say, you come and perform in our club, and we'll deal with it when it happens. So they used to have somebody standing at the door, like looking out for the police. And whilst I'm on stage singing, and if the police came, then I would run back into the kitchen and go and just grab one of the chef's aprons and just wear it and start washing dishes, pretend I'm washing dishes. And when they were gone, and then I would throw it away, go back on stage and just sing. And that was not all, because 11 o'clock, when I'd finished singing, I'd go out, and out there in the street, they would be waiting for me. So I would end up in a cell.
I
beautiful. Because like I say, this is one of the greatest or biggest mistakes the Boers have done in their lives, to be hard on us. Because that didn't keep us down. Instead, it made us strong and more determined. We, at the end of the day, we used to sit back and laugh at them. Like they would lock us up, push us around, put us all in a van, in a police van, and we'd say, "Me bus, me bus, me bus, me." And we didn't mean that, you know. We were mocking at them. We knew that if we say that, they would love it, and they would think, "Oh, poor things, they call me bus, me bus, me. Can I me for the bus sing? I'll sing for the bus. I'll sing for you, my bus. I'll sing." And then he started singing, and then it'd go, okay, and we used to laugh.
People would walk up to you, white, and tell their friends, actually call you, excuse me, you walk up to them and they ask they converse, you become a third person, and they're saying something like, "Oh, wasn't she great?" And they don't even look at you. And if they do look at you and talk to you, they spell things out, and you've been singing for 30 minutes in impeccable English. And I that was actually for me, it made my blood boil.
I was with the Manhattan Brothers going to Johannesburg in Volksrust. We had a car accident. And Victor Mkhize, who was one of our best comedians in this country, was in the car with us. And he had injuries where they said his ribs went into his liver. So he was bleeding internally. We looked for a hospital there. The first hospital we got to was a white hospital, and they wouldn't take them. So they laid them down in the kitchen. We tried to ask the hospital to give us an ambulance. They refused. So we got this car and put Mkhize in it. And when we took Mkhize to the Baragwanath Hospital here in Johannesburg, he died on the operating table. And perhaps he could have been saved if he was immediately attended to.
If I wasn't born here, had I been born from elsewhere, out of South Africa, out of this apartheid, really, I feel it in me that I could have been somewhere, being somebody, and I could have even achieved what my main aim was for, getting a degree in music, being able to pass on what I got to whoever may need. But today, what? It's nothing I can, and it's too late now. I'm 68 now, like you. It's late for me to say I can still go out teaching kids.
Hapo Zamani is a song where I say, if you see me roaming around without a home, looking like a good for nothing, it is because of the Boers. And it is because of apartheid.
Indibona njingena
then it says, run away. Don't be too comfortable, because home we are coming and we will be back. Mama, I left South Africa in 1959 to represent a film made by Lionel Rogerson. It's about everyday life in the township. When Lionel took this film back to America, he showed it to Steve Allen. Steve Allen had a Sunday night show with 60 million viewers.
Get ready for an exciting debut at the Village Vanguard in New York City on December 1st. The star will be tall and stunning Miriam Makeba, a young South African of the Xhosa tribe. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't know how long Miriam has been speaking English, but she's been doing a wonderful job of it all day long here, and it's been very delightful talking to her.
When I found Miriam here, she had been first heavily cultural African impact on the whole country of America, and especially on its music community.
Because it's very close to Zulu, but it has more clicks than Zulu.
More clicks?
Yes, like igqirha lendlela nguqongqothwane iqaqa lambetha uqongqothwane ehamba ngendlela ichole itiki echole.
Oh. Yeah. The kind of what were you saying there, by the way?
Oh, well, this is a saying. They say this when a girl is about to get married, because with us, when we get married, it's a little tough.
In '64 we got married, but we were both on the road so much after that we hardly ever saw each other. In 1966 we called it a draw.
I met Mr. Belafonte before I went to America. When I arrived in America, he was there to guide me. But it was very difficult for me to talk to white people. I wasn't free or used to it. But as time went on with his friends and going to his home, I began to know that I can.
She was in dreamland, but she had just opened at the Village Vanguard, and everybody had been there. Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, and Duke Ellington. And we were blown because to us these were like fantasy figures.
Then I had tried to bring my daughter, Bongi, to America when I left South Africa. Yeah, I already had a child. And Bongi arrived August 1960. I went to take her at the airport, and she had a letter that she gave me saying my mother was very ill. But Bongi was so excited. She was just looking everywhere. I tried not to show her how I was feeling. And then 4 days after she had come, I went to Chicago. And Belafonte's office phoned me there to say that my mother had passed away. And I wanted to come home. Then in his office, they kept saying I shouldn't come because my brother and others were calling from here that the special branch police were at the house every day wanting to know when I was coming home. So finally, but I wanted to come. So when I went to the consulate, they stamped my passport and out. I stayed, but it was the most painful part of my life for me not to be able to see my mother's coffin being taken to her last resting place.
And then this whole part, Mommy, is where the graveyard was.
Even under these houses here.
And then the other part, the other side, is where we used to live.
Yeah. I bet you if I came here by myself, I wouldn't find this place.
This whole section is where the graves were coming this other side. Remember, your sister's grave was also here?
Yes, I know.
Your granny's grave was also here.
Welela, wela, mama. Welela, wela, mama. Wela, wela. Wela, wela, mama. Welela, wela, mama. Welela, wela, mama. Wela, wela. Wela, wela, mama.
People were uprooted. I mean, they were just turned inside out. And old people died of heartbreak every time we were moved. My mother grew thinner. How can you move somebody who's already 70 years old to go and start a new life in a township?
Apartheid has done a lot of damage to the children. They abandoned the education system that was here before and introduced Bantu education.
I ask you and all the leaders of the world, would you act differently? Would you keep silent and do nothing if you were in our place? Would you not resist if you were allowed no rights in your own country because the color of your skin is different to that of the rulers? And if you were punished for even asking...
I first knew of my records being banned when I had gone to speak at the United Nations. I am even surprised and shocked because here I was banned from my country, and they advertise and use my image for advertising. That shows how stupid apartheid was. Another thing is they just heard of a book called Black Beauty, and they banned it. They didn't even know it was about a horse.
I've always admired Miriam Makeba. My dad used to have Miriam Makeba records, which he used to hide, put them in the wardrobe and lock them in. I couldn't understand why was that. And as I grew, he told me you were not allowed to play Miriam Makeba's records in South Africa. Once you were caught with Miriam Makeba's records, you'd be locked in.
Well, when I first went to America, I didn't know anything about FBI or this or that, and I wasn't political at all. I would answer questions about my country as honestly as I could.
She used her fame to be able to get to the media and to let the world know how much we were suffering here. And it was a very difficult time. The United States and Europe were allies of the South African government because the South African government said they were fighting communism.
FBI headquarters. 1 moment, please. I'll give you Mr. Cooper.
We were under surveillance all the time. I mean, phones were tapped and we had intelligence following us around the clock. So it was amazing that given all those elements, Miriam was still able to break through them.
The independence movement in Africa, when one country after another was achieving independence, it had an impact on black people in America. They started moving, and one always influencing the other. I began to get requests to do a college circuit in America. They were fascinated by the click sound and everything.
I was in high school, and she came to perform in this little town I was going to school at. And I was the only black in that town. And also her political stance in the United States and her outspokenness, struggle of the people of South Africa was quite an inspiration for me. There was a lot of white Americans. They hated what was going down, and what Miriam was standing for.
It increased when I got together with Stokely Carmichael.
When they killed Dr. King, they just opened up the eyes of a lot of black people who were afraid to pick up guns, but now they will pick up those guns.
Today in Prattville, Stokely Carmichael, whose arrest Sunday apparently set off the violence, had a hearing in court.
Because Stokely was so outspoken, a lot of people at the time canceled my shows, saying they can't give money to feed the hand that bites them. People say I was banned in America. I was never banned. And I would never lie and say those people banned me from their country. No. It was a small group of people in show business that decided to try to phase me out. And before I could be buried, I said, it happened to me at home, so it's happening here. Maybe I was just made for it. West wind, blow it gentle. So I left and went to Guinea with Stokely. Of Africa. And we were married for 10 years. It wasn't easy to be in exile. We were not stars. You can never be a star in a country that is not yours, because you can be allowed to only go that far. It was always watch TV and see people being shot at, whether it's my family or not my family. They were my people.
I remember when my mother told me that my 2 brothers were in jail. because they didn't want to deal with Afrikaans. And one of my brothers was very outspoken. And he was the first to be thrown in, and the second one went in. And it was like everybody was frightened what's going to happen to them. And those were scary moments when you are out there and you can't touch your family.
Soweto Blues was written for me by Hugh Masekela after the June 16th uprising.
The children got a letter from the master. It said no more Xhosa, no more Zulu. Refusing to comply, they sent an answer. That's when the policemen came to the rescue. Well, the children were flying, bullets dying, oh, the mothers screaming and crying. The fathers were working in the city. The evening news brought out all the publicity. Deep in the city, Soweto Blues, Soweto Blues, Soweto Blues, Soweto
And the chorus says, where were you men when the children were facing guns and throwing stones? I've wanted to come home. Of course, I couldn't. But when President Mandela was released, you know, the whole world was waiting in front of their televisions, and I was one of them. I was in Brussels, and when I saw him walk out of there, I can't tell you how I felt. I just went on my knees and I cried and I prayed. He then talked to me and said, you should come home. And I went to the embassy and said, I want to go home. And then they said, well, your name is still in the computer. I said, well, ask the computer why, and tell the computer I want to go home. Mr. Mandela says we should all come back home. Not only did apartheid affect my life, it affected the lives of my friends, my family. It was very painful for my mother to die while I was abroad. And I lost my daughter, Bongi. She died in 1985. I lost 3 relatives at Sharpeville. real times. President Mandela said to me, you know, we may never forget, but we must forgive. And he said, you cannot sit with your adversary and negotiate in good faith if you haven't forgiven. So we must forgive. But we shouldn't forget.
Yeah.